Oh, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Some minor news coming out today for the New York Giants as they brought Eric Ebron in for a visit, a couple of days before training camp starts. I think it either starts tomorrow or the day after. I'll be there Thursday, so hopefully I get to see some of you guys there. That'll be the first of 3 days that I will be there. But the Giants brought in Ebron today for a visit, and that's going to stir up some questions from the New York Giants fan base, potentially regarding Daniel Bellinger. Of course, the Giants also have Ricky Seals-Jones. In addition to that, they have Jordan Akins at the tight end position as well, who are guys that have really never been able to catch on at their prior destinations, who are probably viewed as more tight ends too, which is why a lot of Giants fans were probably rooting for Bellinger to win that job. Now, the fact that they're bringing in Ebron for a visit, could that potentially hint that the Giants may be a little bit worried that Bellinger may not be able to start the season or may not at least be able to start training camp? Certainly possible. Coming off the injury, he was on the PUP at the start of training camp. I think he's probably going to be in the opening day lineup. I don't know if he'll be starting when the year starts, but regardless, I think Ebron is a guy that could come in and at least pose a threat in terms of competition with some of the guys we have, and that's not really a compliment to Eric Ebron. It's more so to talk about just how thin and unproven we are currently at that tight end spot. It's not like Kelvin Benjamin last year, at least in my opinion. Eric Ebron's not going to come in here 1,000 pounds, and he's a guy that at least has produced at least at a decent level fairly recently. In 2020, he did have over 500 yards. We'll go over some of the stats. We'll talk about some of the deterrents to his game, though, and why the Steelers moved on from him. He was getting phased out of the offense last year at only 84 yards receiving. Of course, they had drafted Pat Freiermuth, but the big book on Ebron, one, he has drop problems. In 2020 with the Steelers, he had 9 drops. Also, he's not known as the best blocker in the world. As a matter of fact, he's a bad blocker. Who does that remind you of, New York Giants fans? Maybe the guy we let go, Evan Ingram. But I'll talk about a major difference if we were to bring in Eric Ebron as opposed to a guy like Evan Ingram. But here's the tweet from Tom Pelissero. With J.K. Dobbins opening up camp on the PUP list, the Ravens worked out veterans running backs Wayne Gallman, former Giant, and Corey Clement, another former Giant, for a very brief period of time. Meanwhile, the Giants worked out a group including tight end Eric Ebron. So there's the tweet from Tom Pelissero in which he said that the New York Giants worked out Ebron. We don't know if they're going to sign him. Let's go over the cap space that the New York Giants have, at least as of now, according to Spot Track. If you look at the bottom right there, the New York Giants right now have $6.85 million to sign on some potential free agents. And will Eric Ebron chew up near that? No. Eric Ebron's coming off a contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers in which he severely disappointed, in which he got 2 years, $12 million. So I would think if the Giants were to bring in Eric Ebron, it would be near a league minimum contract if they felt like he could really make this team. Maybe a little bit more, but I wouldn't expect much more. The Giants right now are probably searching to fill some holes at positions they're very thin at. That being, of course, tight end. That being potentially maybe the interior offensive line. And so, cornerback as well. They could definitely look for a veteran at that position as well. What Ebron could potentially bring to this offense is he could pose a threat in the red zone. He's a tall tight end. Like I said, he did have a 13-touchdown season with Andrew Luck, in which seemingly all of his catches that year came from within the red zone, something that we were hoping for from Kyle Rudolph last year, and somewhere where we really struggled as Giants fans. Do I think he'd make the team? I'm not sure. He's coming off an injury. Supposedly he is fully recovered, but if he were to, at least get an invite to camp, we would have to see how he performs in regards to the rest of the competition. But I think he would at least stand a decent chance if the New York Giants invite him to make this team. And as a matter of fact, he would have a decent chance probably to start just because of how unproven all of our tight ends are. These are his statistics. Last year in 2021, only had 84 yards receiving. Like I said, was used sparingly. Did have 1 touchdown the year before with the Steelers. Had 558 yards and 5 touchdowns. In 2018 with the Colts, that was his career year in which he made the Pro Bowl, in which he had 13 touchdowns with Andrew Luck under center. Don't expect to get that Eric Ebron if the New York Giants bring him in, but at least is a veteran who has experience, who has had some success from within the league. And like I said, you're going to hear a ton of Evan Ingram comparisons, and I think it is correct in the sense that the guy is not a good blocker. He's known as a poor blocker, and he's had drop problems, something that New York Giants fans complained about for years with Evan Ingram. The difference is Eric Ebron would be a near league minimum contract. Evan Ingram was making a decent amount of money, $6-7 million. I think he got about $8 or $9 million in free agency this year. So that's the major difference for me regarding these two players. You're giving a guy an opportunity. Why would Eric Ebron sign on with the New York Giants potentially for less money than he may be able to get somewhere else? Maybe he could get $2 or $3 million somewhere else. Well, with the Giants, if he looks strong in camp, he actually stands a decent chance to be a pretty big part of this offense, at least get an opportunity at some point to maybe be the tight end 1, if not the tight end 2 for the New York Giants this year. That's how thin we are at that position. So I think Ebron may view it as an opportunity to get his best shot in terms of getting the most targets this year and being the most involved in an offense throughout the NFL. I haven't done my research in terms of all the other teams around the league. I'm sure there's several other teams that could potentially be looking for a tight end. I have seen some lists in which several people have talked about how Eric Ebron is one of the 10 best available free agents in football. But I think for the Giants, it's probably his best fit from that standpoint. He would probably get as many targets here if he works out and looks good in camp as he would anywhere else. Being that we have a rookie in Daniel Bellinger who's unproven, and I think he could start, but if he's already banged up. And we have two other unproven tight ends. I know Aikens had about 400 yards with the Texans for a couple of years, but he hasn't done much in the NFL. And the same could be said for Ricky Seals-Jones, who I think his career high is about 350 yards receiving. He has had injury problems in the past. So it'll be interesting to see if the New York Giants do sign Ebron. It would be a minor signing, but of course a big name. I do think it would hold a lot more weight, like I said at the top of the video, than like, say, the Kelvin Benjamin signing last year. I will say that. And I do think he would stand a decent to probably a very good chance if he was healthy and in good shape to make this New York Giants football team, for the simple reason of how poor we are at that position right now. Outside of that, like I said, I'd expect the New York Giants during the offseason, when it will be, I don't know, to look to target cornerbacks, to look to target interior offensive linemen. They have $6.8 million to spend to try to bring in some veterans, and I think the New York Giants are going to wait for the market to kind of fall out, right? These players have been able to scour the market now for a few months, haven't been able to find a destination. Eventually, you're going to have to sign on for close to the league minimum, which unfortunately, as Giants fans, is really all we have to afford right now when we bring in football players. And make no mistake about it, that is what Eric Ebron would be signing for if he were to sign on with the New York Giants. Expected to be much like several of the other contracts that the Giants have signed this entire offseason. 1 year, $1 million, $1.2 million, whatever, it has been. Due to the fact that Dave Gettleman left Joe Shane in such a poor cap situation, they've had to look for bargain deals. But this is one bargain that could be worth it. Ebron is a former Pro Bowler. He's still only 29 years old. And if he's fully recovered, could make at least a small impact this year for this New York Giants football team. He's a tall target at the tight end spot. We'll see if the Giants really invite him and whether or not he makes this team. But I thought it was an interesting name that came about today. Am I super excited if we sign him? No. But I can certainly understand why the New York Giants would. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.